Hey YouTube, Joyboy here. So, today I want to talk about the Straw Hats in space, or the importance of space to the story of One Piece. But I don't think that this video will end up being all-encompassing about my thoughts on the subject. We're gonna direct it in one particular direction, which I feel like I can argue at this time because this subject is incredibly convoluted and difficult to explain, and difficult to speculate on, even while knowing that it's probably in some way important. But before we get into the topic of this video, I want to let you guys know about my Discord once again. If you don't know what it is, or if you want to know what it is, go check out the link in the description. If you already are familiar with Discord, feel free to join my server. But anyway, I suppose that we will start here. And so for those who may not know, I know that many do, but for those who don't, space might actually become an important aspect of the One Piece story. And I think the strongest clues which suggest this came from Enel's cover story arc. Now, there's a bunch of cover stories that take place at the beginning of chapters and usually focus on characters that we've already seen in the main story and what their exploits are afterwards. And so after Luffy was able to beat Enel headed towards the Endless Verth, or the Endless Earth, Fairy Verth, otherwise known as the Moon. And so we learned a ton of new things from this cover story. It's one of the most interesting in my opinion. First, when Enel traveled to the moon, he met space pirates. Yes, real space pirates. They actually exist with their spaceships out in space. It's a real thing. But even more interestingly, if that's even possible, we learned that the winged people I'm referring to the people of Shandoria, who in some way landed on Jaya, as well as the people of Skypiea and Burka being the other Sky Island home of winged people, home to people like Enel, as well as most probably Rouge. They all originated from this moon, that they actually in the distant past lived underneath the surface and abandoned it due to lack of resources to settle on the main planet. So we know that people had, and people still do, live up in space somewhere, and some of these people actually traveled back down to the main planet, so they are essentially aliens. And so let's get directly to the point. This is what I wonder. If the winged people abandoned their moon to head towards the main planet, perhaps others did as well. There is more than one moon to the One Piece planet. There are at least 6 of them. How many other civilizations from space ended up on the planet? And if civilizations do still exist up there, which they do because we know that there are space pirates, how often do they visit the blue planet? And so it begs this question. If aliens or people of space and the moons were to arrive on the main planet on many separate occasions, what impact would that have on the world? And I think that it's undeniable that it would have some, that at the very least, these space entities would bring along with them technology that the main planet hadn't seen before. And so I'm going to start off by giving you guys my thoughts and not justifying why I have them fully. We will get there eventually, but it's going to start off sounding like fan fiction. A lot of these points relating to the Void Century are theories that I've already made, theories that I believe in, and so I will include links in the descriptions for relevant theories that I think you might want to watch to better understand why I might think some of these things. So to summarize what I perceive as what happened during the Void Century in a few words, is it was essentially a conflict between the 20 kings or rulers of various islands along the Grand Line, as well as the Ancient Kingdom, an unnamed, prosperous, great kingdom that somehow disappeared from history shortly after the Void Century, and then the 20 kings went on to form the world government. And so I think before the Void Century, the Ancient Kingdom was essentially the most powerful kingdom that existed on the planet. And so again, another theory that I've talked about in the past is that I believe that the Ancient Kingdom was actually a kingdom of pirates, and that the king of the Ancient Kingdom was referred to as the Pirate King. And as Luffy himself would define the Pirate King, the most free man in the world, the ruler of the seas. And so the Ancient Kingdom is referred to as a technologically advanced superpower. And I think that the reason why they became so powerful is because of their ability to travel, essentially containing members of various kingdoms and groups all across the world who could share information and technology, and all this technology went back to this great pirate kingdom. I think the greatest example that I can give you, or one of the greatest examples that I can give you, for the power of simply adventuring and bringing together the ideas of many different cultures is what we get in the flashback of Noland as well as Kalgra, the flashback for Jaya. Noland, despite not being a pirate, is very, very similar to what a peace main pirate would be. And he talked about how there was this fever, tree rush, in which there was doctors in the South Blue who were able to find a cure for this plague and literally spread it to other parts of the world, all the way to the North Blue, where Noland happened to be from. And so this medicine for tree rush saved the people of Noland's homeland, home kingdom, and he then took that knowledge to go save the people of Jaya and the Shandorians. This is the power of sharing information. Individual kingdoms may have specific strengths, it might be individually strong, but together we are almost invincible. Nothing is impossible. So I believe that the ancient kingdom had access to the best medicine and the best doctors, the best cooks, the best shipwrights, the best technology, the best inventors, the world's best weather experts and scholars, and musicians. And through the process of adventuring and sailing across the various seas, could become very strong physically. And I think that they made friends with many various people from across the world and across the Grand Line. So the real question is that sometime during the Void Century, the ancient kingdom lost to the 20 kings. And why? How could this great and prosperous, technologically advanced kingdom get defeated? It's even stated that they had access to ancient weapons capable of destroying the world. And so guys, to get to the point here, I think that something changed roughly 1,000 years in the One Piece world's past. I think roughly 1,000 years before the start of this story, a particular civilization from one of the moons arrived on the blue planet, bringing with them technology the world had never seen before. A technology which would completely change the power structure. A technology given to the 20 kings, and this very same technology allowed them to defeat the strongest country, the strongest kingdom on the planet. And I think that these moon people brought with them the power of devil fruits. I do not think that the 20 kings are moon people. I think that they were actually kings and leaders of 20 various countries spread out across the Grand Line. But I do think that they allied with and borrowed the technology of these moon people. Now it's questionable as to whether these moon people abandoned their home on the moon or merely sought power on the blue sea while ruling over their moon. But I do think that it's important that the descendants of the 20 kings who went on to form the world government called themselves celestial dragons. Celestial obviously referring to space, and wear space suits in order to prevent themselves from breathing the air of lesser humans. And there's many different narratives that you could derive, each of which being possible around this idea, but I personally like the idea that they rule in the shadows behind the celestial dragons, with their base perhaps still being up on the moon. Or if they decided to abandon the moon, then they are living secretly in Mariejois. And so I've said quite a lot of things in a short time, and now it's time to fit the pieces in the middle together so that you understand why I might think this. And so we'll start off with Enel's cover story. As we know, Enel had the Goro Goro no Mi, or the Logia Lightning Devil Fruit. And so, in some way, it isn't clarified, he was able to design the Arc Maxim, or basically a ship that ran on his Logia Devil Fruit's abilities. It is never clarified where the blueprints from the Arc Maxim came from. It is never stated that Enel was the one to design it, only that he asked the priests of Skypiea to build it for him. So I really wonder where it came from, where Enel got the idea to build a ship that ran on his Devil Fruit abilities. And guys, I seriously wonder if this wasn't technology passed down over time from the Sky people who once lived on the moon. The reason that I say this is because it is extremely coincidental that the Burka of the moon also ran and was able to be powered by Enel's Devil Fruit ability. In fact, the little glass orbs that we see on the Arc Maxim appear to be almost exactly the same as the glass orbs located on the moon. It makes you wonder if the winged people have always had, or almost always had, the Goro no Mi, even while they lived on the moon. It's very interesting to me that the concept of a culture having a god is not as prevalent as you would think that it would be in the world of One Piece, but it is something that is shared between the Shandorians and the Skypians, maybe also the Birkins as well. A Rouge is referred to as the Mad Monk. And so it gives you the impression, with these three separate winged people having been separated almost probably as soon as they arrived on the blue planet, that this must have been something that may have been shared in their original home on the moon in Burka. Maybe the winged people have always had a god, and maybe their god originally on the moon was the person who ate the Goro no Mi, the person who could give them power and life on the lifeless moon. I think the blueprints of the Arc Maxim were something that were passed down over many generations and intended to be built for somebody who had the powers of Enel's Devil Fruit. Enel just happened to obtain these blueprints before he destroyed the Sky Island of Burka. We know that once a Devil Fruit user dies, the fruit seems to transfer to a nearby regular fruit. And so how exactly did this fruit come to be up on an isolated Sky Island? Did a Logia Devil Fruit user really get killed? Is that pretty unlikely? I would say so. So then you would have to presume that they died of old age on Burka. Maybe because they lived in Burka. The fruit just always stayed there until a Devil Fruit user died of natural causes. I think that it's very easy to speculate that Devil Fruits are not of the blue planet. That this blue planet, which is covered mostly by water, that the Devil Fruits and their powers cannot exist within the water. I think that Oda is trying to tell us that their energies are contrary to each other. One of the lesser concepts that Oda touches on repeatedly, but hasn't fully fleshed out, so I believe that is important, is that everything has its own energy. The sea has its energy. The sea stone mimics the energy of the sea. That we can see that Kuro gets some sort of vibe or energy from the crescent moon. And that Zoro, when he was fighting Mr. One, had for a short time the ability to sense the energy of everything around him in order to dodge the falling rubble. He calls this the objects or these things breath, the breath of all things. And out of all the things that we know exist on this planet, the one thing's energy which does not belong seems to be the energy of the Devil Fruits. So basically what I'm saying, guys, is that the Devil Fruits originate from the moons of One Piece, or from space. And I think that there's one thing that, to continue what I'm trying to say here, above all else, which gives me this impression. And so we obviously know that the Skypians and the Birkins are not very familiar with the Blue Sea, having arrived in the Sky Islands and having very limited interaction with them. They don't even know what rubber is. But Enel is very, very familiar with Devil Fruits and the classes of them. And I think that this is because the Birkins knew how to make Devil Fruits from their time on the moon. Or at the very least, even if they don't know how to make them, they are familiar with them to an absurd extent. And I think that Oda even showed us how it works. And so, during the flashback on Jai and the Shandians with Nolan and Kalgra, we learn of the Shandians' sacred forest, or the forest of their ancestors. The Shandians use their giant bell to call the souls of the deceased to this sacred forest. If you guys have checked out my theory, The National Treasure of Mariejois, as well as any of my theories relating to artificial Devil Fruits, you'll know that I believe that Devil Fruits actually grow from trees. And so essentially my ideas relating to Devil Fruits are that the tree of the Devil Fruit takes in the energy of the deceased, of the dead, whether that be animals or humans, any living being, and converts that into a special fruit which mimics the energy of something that exists. I think the process in the creation of artificial devil fruits or smile give us the most clues that Caesar was able to create this chemical known as SAD, and I believe that the chemical SAD is actually the souls or the spirit energy of the deceased, and that Doflamingo took this chemical SAD and pumped it into the rivers of this vast forest, littered with trees, which these trees then absorbed this in order to produce fake devil fruits. And he did this with the help of the Tantara, masters of planting and growing, and even they themselves gave us an impression that whatever was being created here was not natural. So essentially what I'm speculating is that the devil fruit trees produce powerful fruit by absorbing life. If you are a fan of Dragon Ball Z, this might just remind you of the Tree of Might. It's been stated on numerous occasions from Oda as well as everyone involved with One Piece that Oda is extremely influenced by the Dragon Ball franchise. And so the special movie The Tree of Might, which came out in 1990, could very well have inspired Oda to create devil fruits. The amount of parallels to what I'm trying to speculate right now is just absurd, and I didn't start off with the intention of paralleling it or comparing it with the Tree of Might, but essentially the Tree of Might is referred to by King Kai also as the Tree of Death. The seeds of this great tree are carried by space pirates and implanted on various worlds which might be suitable for it in order to produce powerful fruits. But the cost of obtaining these powerful fruit comes with the life of the planet itself. And so what happened to the original home of the winged people? It seemed to have died. They no longer had the ability to produce resources. And what is the tradition of the Shandorians who originated from the moon and space? Their tradition was to call the spirits of their ancestors to the sacred forest. But coincidentally or not, the same sacred forest housing the spirits of their ancestors ultimately could have led to their entire people's death. The forest carried with it a plague that could only be stopped by cutting down these sacred trees. I cannot tell you whether or not these trees that were on Jaya 400 years in the past were actually devil fruit trees or not, but regardless of whether it's direct or indirect, there seems to be some meaning here. Does the creation of devil fruits destroy life? I wonder how mind-blown you may feel if you come to learn that Oda told us all along in Nolan's flashback that the tree of the devil feeds off of life, and so in order to satiate it, you must kill. But if you don't satiate it, it will kill. It creates a plague. Does this bell's sound really call souls? Is there some connection potentially to the Soul King himself, Brook, and his music? But going back to the national treasure of Mariejois, I made a theory sometime in the past suggesting that perhaps what it is the tree of the devil. For me, there has to be a reason why the vast majority of devil fruits all come from and stay within the Grand Line. You very rarely see them outside of it. And in fact, to people outside of the Grand Line, devil fruits are more myth than real. And again, for me, there has to be reason why the world government has access to and the vast majority of the supply of devil fruits. All the strongest members of the Marines have devil fruit abilities. And the celestial dragons themselves, for fun, give devil fruit abilities to slaves. And when Spandam gave devil fruit abilities to members of CP9, Kaku, and Khalifa, he spoke very cryptically about connections. And it's important to clarify here that we've already connected the celestial dragons to some moon civilization. It's hard to be sure how exactly this could possibly work, but I wonder if the technology which creates devil fruits was somehow readily available up in space, because we know that they're space pirates, that if they can travel to the blue world, that they could travel between moons. It is incredibly difficult to be sure of any specific details, but essentially what I want to convey to you is the possibility that many groups that exist up in space know how to create devil fruits. Or maybe to keep in line with the parallels to the Tree of Might, receive the seeds of the devil fruit tree, and may have spread the technology. such that the winged people could have the Goro Goro no Mi, while some other moon civilization might have their own devil fruits. So I really wonder if this moon civilization brought with them the pre-existing devil fruits which were already created, as well as the means to create new ones. Basically, they took these devil fruit trees from their moon and brought it to Earth. And there's two ways that you could take this. On one hand, perhaps these parasitic trees of the devil, which consume life to survive, killed their home moons. So they were literally forced to leave. And not knowing that it was these trees that killed their home, brought the trees with them to the surface. Or on the other hand, they are aware of the potential dangers of growing a tree of the devil, and wish to sacrifice the blue planet in order to gain a tremendous amount of strength through the devil fruits created there, at the cost of the planet itself. I want to emphasize this. These devil fruit trees are hypothetically feeding off of the dead, the souls of the dead, and with a lack of death, then maybe they can't grow. Again, is it a coincidence that the Shandorians sacrificed their live women to their god? Again, if you follow the original one-shot versions of One Piece Romance Dawn, you'll know that Oda's original concept for devil fruits was actually there wasn't many different types of devil fruits. There was only the Gomu Gomu tree. The Gomu Gomu tree, which produced a new Gomu Gomu fruit every 50 years. I do think that it would make a lot of sense if there was an actual tree of the devil or devil fruit tree in the canon story, which collected the souls of the deceased and over a certain time period produced a brand new kind of devil fruit. And so to potentially type a loose end, and this is highly speculative, but I just want to throw this out here, is that if the world government has the ability to create or know how to create devil fruit trees, then what is the need for the research regarding artificial devil fruits? And if I were to speculate something that doesn't have a whole lot of backing, I would suggest it has something to do with devil fruit trees not being able to grow on the blue planet. That you could speculate something along the lines of that the devil fruit tree was brought from their moon to the main planet, but they cannot grow anymore. And so that is why they prioritize Vegapunk and Caesar's research. Devil fruits are most certainly one of the most powerful weapons that could exist in the world. Monopoly on their powers is paramount to anyone who wants to stay in power. And so if you're limited by space on the moon, or if you're limited by the necessity of taking life in order to create devil fruits, then it would make sense to want to plant as many of these trees as possible on the blue planet. But the Tree of Might cannot grow everywhere. It can only grow in environments suitable for it. In the case of Dragon Ball Z, Earth was an acceptable host. But maybe in One Piece, Earth is not an acceptable host, which is why they haven't planted more trees of the devil. The energy of the sea is in fact protecting the planet. And so if the original seeds of the Tree of the Devil don't work, or don't work everywhere on this blue planet, and you want to create more devil fruits, then you have to in some way create a new version of it, an artificial devil fruit tree. Anyway guys, I could go on forever, and it's really hard to substantiate fully any idea that I may offer in this theory in this video, because a lot of this stuff, there's not a lot of things to go on. This is so far into the future and endgame that you know that Oda is going to add little twists here and there, even if it's possible that I'm in the right direction. But I think that there are enough clues in order for us to sit back and think to ourselves, well, maybe there's something here. But I do highly recommend you check out my videos further elaborating on the potential of the Tree of the Devil in my theory, The National Treasure of Mariejois, and my video talking about artificial devil fruits. If you take anything at all from this video, it's that for one reason or another, Oda decided to introduce to us the concept of space and moon civilizations in Enel's cover story, and I expect this to, in some form or another, come back into the main story. The descendants of the 20 kings are called celestial dragons, I would imagine, for a reason. There's a reason why they wear spacesuits. There is some reason for the story itself that the sea counteracts and is counter to the power of the devil fruits. And it is incredibly interesting the parallels that can be derived based on what we can speculate and what we know about devil fruits and the Tree of Might. But anyway guys, that's all I really wanted to talk about today. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you agree or disagree and why. Share your thoughts. Like the video if you like the video, dislike the video if you dislike the video. Make sure to check out links to Patreon as well as Discord in the description. Huge thanks to all of my Patreons who make videos like this possible. I would really appreciate it if you took the time to share this video because it took a lot of energy out of me to make because it's just an incredibly confusing topic. Subscribe if you haven't, and as always guys, have a wonderful day.